On this episode, we're going to be talking to 3 experts around cold emailing and what they do, plus what they see from the inside scoop of so many companies that their platforms are helping to grow.
Ever wonder why some companies grow faster than others? What are they doing differently? And what are their secret ingredients? That's what this podcast is all about. Welcome to Boost Sauce.
All right, so we have a stellar lineup today. I'm super excited. 3 different conversations that we had. One is with Max Altschuler from Outreach.io. We also have Sujan Patel from Mailshake.com and George Vitko from Reply.io. So let's jump right into it.
Hello.
What's up, my man? How are you?
How you doing? Good.
Yeah, I'm pretty great as well. I am super thankful and pumped that you're here with us talking about cold emails. And obviously, being the co-founder of Mailshake, I think you have a lot to share. But I wanted to make a quick introduction to the guest who might not know. The first time I met Sujan was at the Conversion XL conference in Austin. And I think we hit it off pretty great. We haven't talked since because we're so busy. You have 8 companies now, but I do remember one thing, and that was beating you at ladder ball. Do you remember that?
Maybe that's the reason why we haven't talked. Too embarrassed.
You're like, no, I don't recall. So fun. Well, man, I want to talk to you guys about what you guys do at Mailshake, what you can share with us. And obviously, as you know, we're super tactical. We want to drop some, like we talked about before, some practical nuggets. So when it comes to Mailshake, I'm seeing on your website right now that you basically can generate leads, build relationships, promote content. Is there anything from a starting standpoint of where you know that cold emails are a great fit and when they're not a good fit? I can't seem to think of anything where it's not a good fit, but let me know.
Yeah, so I think it generally works. I mean, I recruited my co-founder to work on Mailshake with me through a cold email. So I mean, like recruiting, I think like sales, marketing, I think there's a hodgepodge of reasons and ways to use cold email.
Yeah.
Where it's not a good fit is like if you don't have a good product or you haven't figured out your offering, and you're trying to vet the fact, like if you're trying to validate your product or validate if it's pre-product market fit, or you don't know if the service is going to be good, don't ask strangers to give you feedback, because they will be, you either hear crickets or brutally honest feedback.
Yeah.
And without the context, it's not valuable. So figure stuff out. It's like any other marketing or sales channel. And you don't do PPC ads when you don't have any idea of what's happening in your business.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to have something, or if you do it, you kind of do it to validate get feedback.
Yeah, to speed that up. That makes sense.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. And then when you go through, let's take the marketing approach, because obviously this is a marketing podcast. What are some of the frequent uses that you see Mailshake users using for marketing purposes? Is it sales related, like sales enablement, or maybe I kind of Venn diagrammed, hopped over that fence, but let me know.
Yeah, so I think there's like a couple main ways people use Mailshake, and really any cold email or email sequence kind of software.
Yeah.
Mostly lots of content promotion or link building. I kind of put them in the same bucket because the angle might be a little different, but the outcome is the same. You want the person on the other end to be like, yeah, I'll link to you, or I'll share this or do something for you regarding your website. There's a lot of folks that come in, like we've got lots of just website owners, various industries, who use Mailshake as more of an auto follow, like a auto responder.
Okay.
And so like a lead comes in, let's just say somebody fills out Client Boost website, they fill out the lead form.
Yeah.
It goes into your CRM, it goes to Mailshake, and you've got a sequence that like you can then go use to kind of nurture that person. And obviously you want to get them on the phone and all that stuff, but like, not always does a lead that comes in, are they going to jump on the phone or answer your email? And so this, you can write a pre-written cadence, and so that's another way. And then you can use it for onboarding, like new users to your software, free trial, any which way you want. Yeah. As long as you can put people through. The big value of Mailshake, or really a cold email tool like us, and there's 60-something competitors in this space. So very, very,
all right.
I don't know if that's a lot, but it feels like a lot,
Seems
anyways,
decently high,
it's a big number, right? Right. So, so the big value here is that when you send an email through your marketing software or whatever, it's going through some sort of like server, it's going through like a third party, and it ends up hitting the promotion tab more times than not, or overlooked because it just doesn't look like a plain text individual email.
Right.
Well, value of Mailshake is that whether it's Gmail or whatever your personal email, like Outlook or whatever, it's going to be sent through there, directly through there. So Mailshake is not actually sending emails. It's just a layer on top of it. So
interesting.
You end up getting a better open rate. And, and obviously like setting up the follow-ups and triggers, like at our agency, we use it to kind of use like a 5 to 7 email sequence to kind of get somebody to respond, give us information, and get that conversation started. And sometimes it takes 2-3 times before they're like, oh yeah, like I forgot I emailed these guys. It's Adam's reaching out as their salesperson or whatever. So like, I better talk to him, and it's different angles or whatever. So ultimately, that's kind of the different ways. But every time I talk to customers, I'm surprised at the different ways they're hacking Mailshake to make it work. So
that's awesome. I'm gonna give you some nuggets for that. Obviously, if I kept dropping the nugget sound every single time, we wouldn't get far in the actual segment here. One thing that we found worked really well, and this is seeing this too, like if we have old leads or old clients that are no longer with us, we have this drip that's actually a 2-year cadence, and it actually sends an email once a month, and it works for us. Like we've gotten conversations started again, we've gotten old, dormant leads back or old clients back as well too. And so that sounds like something you can use with Mailshake or, like you said, any cold email outreach tool. That's super cool.
Absolutely. Yeah. And go ahead.
No, you were going to talk.
Yeah. So I think about your email marketing list, right? Your opt-in list. Can you segment any of those folks? Are you emailing them? Like, for example, let's say you run a conference or you run a conference and you've got people who bought from you last year. Like that's not a marketing blast that you send to your automation tool. That's one like you want to try to do as personal as possible.
Okay.
Because that's the highest likelihood you're going to get repeat sales, right? Yep. They've already bought from you. They've attended your conference. So those types of things you can use Mailshake for because it's a very tightly pruned list.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to always be cold email. It's just better deliverability, open rate. And again, I've tried every which way against this, but plain text emails just work.
I was just going to ask you
with any other one.
No, I believe you because it looks like you wrote it and took the time. So for the people listening, when you send out marketing emails, which you still can do if you come out with a new blog post or any update of anything from a company's sort, sure. But as far as it sounds like engagement or getting people to take action, the plain text emails that look like you just wrote it seem to perform the best. Is that true?
Exactly. And everything from the font size, the number of links, all that matters, whether it's personalized or not. It doesn't have to be personalized. Just plain text email beats other emails hands down.
Interesting. Okay, cool. Now you mentioned this is kind of interesting because this episode can kind of umbrella and branch into so many other things because we talk about content, we talk about outreach, we talk about backlinks, we talk about sales acceleration, things like that too. Let's take one example at a time. So let's say that you're trying to promo your content or you're trying to get backlinks. Now, I get about 10 requests or emails a day where they're like, hey, we noticed blah, blah, blah. You should take our link and put it in there instead. But there's no value to me. Is there anything that you've seen that has a higher, acceptance rate of people getting the promo to actually work or the backlinks to actually be put in place? Like, is there some kind of incentive or value trade-off? I don't know if you can even share that information, but I wanted to ask you.
Yeah, so I can share that. I can't tell you how customers are using it, but Ramp Ventures are 8 companies. We do SEO content marketing for ourselves. We generate, probably somewhere between 250 to 300 backlinks a month.
Wow.
And have been increasing that number month over month for the last few years.
Yeah.
But in a very lean team, I'm talking 2 people that do outreach that are probably responsible for most of those links. There's some content writers and things on the folks in the back end that can contribute to it, but it's a fairly small team.
Yeah.
The biggest thing is those angles, the angle you described or any of the basic link building angles or content promotion angles you would see out there, they still work.
Yeah.
They actually work better than ever. The only difference is you have to frame it differently. So for example, you get 10 emails a day. I know you get 10 emails a day, Jonathan. Like I probably send you one of those, and you probably linked to me at some point. But
I marked you as spam already.
The connection, right? So, so I think it's like the relationship, the context, and getting their attention. So the first thing you said of why you don't link to people is because there's no value for you, right? And so I don't think people can make value for you for asking for something, but maybe that's not the first ask, right? So I would suggest like optimize the first sentence, because what you just said is you lost them. They lost you at the either the subject line or the first sentence, and you just skipped over that email.
Yeah.
So that's the first two things you need to optimize for. And so instead of saying like the same old pitch that everyone else does, talk about like how you love like the client boost. Like I was talking to you earlier. It was like, hey, I love how transparent you are. Your blog post on and how you reach X revenue, X employees, problems you've solved. That stuff is not just inspirational, it's tactical, and you know, it's awesome. It's it's like reading Amazon's 10K, right? It's you learn a lot, right? Even if you've done it before or whatever. And so, you know, well, first of all, kudos to that. But like, you see that sentence, I could just tell you that I've read your post and made an impact, and then say the same thing I was going to say anyways, asking for something. Now you just like buttered somebody up.
Yeah.
And it's like, I have a funny story real quick. I was getting gas in my car, and a homeless lady comes up to me and she's like, wow, that's an awesome jacket. I'm like, cool. Thank you. I just happened to get a new jacket. Yeah. And then she's like, can I have $1? I'm like, okay, fine.
No way.
You got me. And I knew, and like, it's just because how many homeless people compliment you?
Right.
You know, or you know, how many, everybody's going to ask for $1.
Yeah.
But you might as well go in, try to do something different. And so I think the part of this is like showing you care, that something that person did, because you probably put a lot of hard work into your blog post. I mean, everybody does. It's you don't just snap your fingers, it comes out of thin air. So it's showing that you did the homework, you read it, you care, it impacted your life. And ultimately, you're doing here is just starting by building relationships. And so what we started doing is we started by optimizing with the first part of the email, and then we're like, what if we just take the ask out of it?
Yeah.
And we just focus on building connection.
Yeah.
And so now we don't have to promote our content, because, you know, we just share it, and we've helped people, we've built relationships, and it just kind of gets shared by itself. We built this flywheel. And so my whole point is focus on the long game of building the content promotion flywheel and the link building through relationships, because that's going to help you more than anything else.
That's so cool. So really, really interesting point that you just made there. Not only should you have a repertoire of new jackets at all times, because that sounds like it helps, but in addition to that, you're buttering up methodology that you just mentioned. So we use something called the breadcrumb technique for landing pages, and the way that it works is that we don't go straight for the jugular and come with the aggressive ask. We kind of let the visitor on the landing page take these multiple steps, because the most threatening thing in your world with the gas station example is getting asked for that $1, right? Or, you know, any type of dollar amount, because you know it's going to happen. The other part from a landing page perspective is like the contact information, like name, email, and phone number. So what we found is that we put that at the end of the landing page steps, but in the beginning we ask these questions that are anonymous, so that it makes the visitor think and feel like they're getting a custom automated solution as they go through these steps. And so it's like the same thing that you don't go up to the bar and ask that significant other or potential significant other to marry you right on the spot. You may if you're aggressive, but I think your success rate will be pretty low. But you do other things. You court them. So that sounds like we're in alignment there. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I've actually been to so many of those landing pages where you're asked to take a quiz, right? Like I just fell for this. I'm a sucker for Instagram ads, and I'm okay with it. Like I've just bought like the weirdest stuff.
Yeah.
Like just whatever is advertised to me. Eventually, if you just like, you go past the 7 times of remarketing to me, you get like the 10th time, I'll buy it. Shit, you know? But some of the best ads on that platform aren't like, the best landing page don't ask you for your information up front.
Yeah.
They get you to engage, and they get you another question, a softer blow, a little bit more, and then, so awesome. You got to put the nugget sound blast for yourself. So
all right, we'll do the bigger chicken sound. Well, that's really cool because I've been doing it completely the wrong way, and there's even a part where this kind of overlaps with like even LinkedIn Sales Navigator, which isn't necessarily cold email, but I hired this other agency to kind of give me the game plan of doing this. They wrote the content, but it like went straight for, hey, I'm the CEO of Client Boost. We help hundreds of blah, blah, blah. I'm like, nobody gives a crap. And so we never came with the buttering up approach first. So that was a huge eye opener that I'm going to take away and start using and changing right now. That's amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Or just try to get engagement. Like if you're doing LinkedIn, think about like what that other person on the other end, like, what problems are they going through? Like, get me to nod my head or like look that way, right? It's like somebody's yelling at you, but you've got your headphones on. What are you going to do to get that person's attention? Right. You're going to like throw something or do something. So try something, try another angle.
Yeah. No, just even thinking like from a cold outreach perspective, for like lead generation, for example, which we can talk about right here now. I'm even thinking of how I'm going to do like a cross effect with like, hey, you're a CMO because I'm targeting you by job title. And we created this survey that we're actually going to use for a blog post. Would you mind filling it out? It takes about 5 minutes. Like that could be something that likes buttering them up or kind of treating them as a thought leader. And then once you've kind of built that rapport, your goal is still to publish that blog post. But now you can actually say, hey, even though they don't know it, they're still your target audience for whatever you want to accomplish. So now the door is open and you can start talking, which is pretty interesting too. So many different ideas.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a couple of agencies I know that have done that really well.
Yeah.
With like a very similar demographic, and they figured out their exact perfect customer, and they've just engaged with surveys, marketing first, right?
Yeah.
Some form of content, whether it's a survey or whatever, get them participating. Maybe even get him on your podcast, and then
I'm going to close you later.
I know so many folks who use podcasts.
Yeah,
and then you just close them later, right? Because like in this podcast, we're building a stronger relationship.
Right.
I mean, I guess it's a public one, right? Because everyone's listening or whatever. But at the end, you follow up, and you could probably close them. So I think there's a lot of different ways to use marketing and upfront and giving value upfront.
Yeah.
And then I think one of the things you said was like, you didn't quite say this, but your example was low friction ask.
Mm-hmm.
You're giving something away, like you're giving a survey, and it would be even better if you did this every year.
Yeah.
And so next year you could say like, hey, here's our survey from last year, like, so they know you're legit. So now you have social proof. It's the same elements as you would do on a landing page, a good landing page, social proof, low friction ask, or low friction call to action, some form of personalization.
Yeah.
But the only difference is you have no design. Well, you don't want design. It needs to be plain text. And you have a fairly limited amount of attention span / words you can use.
Right. Interesting. So this is funny because on another episode around content marketing, we actually spoke with Andy Crestadina out of Orbit Media, and some of his best performing blog posts are from first party data research. And so if you're using the low friction ask or the buttering up, you can use a Google form link in your outreach if you wanted to, things like that too. But it's really important that you, like you mentioned, bring value first. Do not come straight for the jugular when it comes to content promotion or backlink. And at the end of the day, if you can turn that into a relationship, so you have this army of people and companies ready to kind of share, then you'll probably have to do it less and less. I'm assuming. Is that correct?
I guess you would have less and less to do, but you would probably, everybody wants to reach higher and further, right?
So
like you would just be going to more impactful. Like, so like I want Elon Musk to email me back, right?
Yeah.
No email has gotten through to him. So like, it's just kind of aiming bigger, but you have the bait with content promotion, especially.
Yeah.
Once you've done this enough, people recognize your brand, you build enough relationships, and you do these evergreen pieces of content. You have a good base to work off of. That the traffic that just comes to your website can consume more content.
And you kind of hit the nail on the head too, because you mentioned about how cold email is not going to fix your crappy product, right? So it's not necessarily going to fix your crappy content either if you don't think about the quality of it too. So it kind of plays and permeates across different types of marketing, but also your own product and service. Is there?
Yeah, right. And
go ahead.
You can't get the yes. You can't get the yes without the or the success. You might get an open rate. You might get a click. You might get a response.
Yeah.
But not going to go away unless you can back it up with whatever you're promoting.
Yeah. Is there anything from like a benchmark perspective that you look for from, an open rate, a click-through rate? Like, you guys probably have those internal metrics. Should people care about that? Should they not care about that? I don't know. Like, you tell us.
So the only metric I care about is the reply rate.
Reply rate.
I've had some of these, reply meaning actual people responding to you. There you go. Because open rates and click-through rates are really, really misleading. One of our companies, Voila Norbert, we try to do some inside sales and get people who sign up. We get 20,000 people who come through the door every single month. And so we're like, okay, there's no way we could do sales. And so we try to like prune the list and all that stuff, prune the new users and do some form of inside sales to identify the high value ones.
Yeah.
Long story short, we sent an email blast to like 500 people and it has 60 something percent open rate. I'm like, yes, this is amazing.
Yeah.
But like 4 people responded. And I'm like, oh wow, okay. And it didn't generate. I think it generated like $50 in revenue for us.
Okay.
And so like that was just a complete waste of time in terms of time to ROI or revenue. But yeah, I mean, like there's a lot of false positives, and so you can have a good open rate because you have a good subject line. But like if you don't get the reply, then your email has missed the boat. And I think there's a lot of emails out there that are like or forward or like kind of misleading.
Right.
And those misleading emails always get better open rates.
Yeah.
But they're usually the first to get marked as spam. And if you could see the person's webcam, you would see them being annoyed, right? Like you would just see their face. Like, I feel misled, right? And
They're
so
mad.
I don't know about you, but I've never seen I've never been in an emotional state of being angry and I respond positively or respond at all.
That seems impossible to do.
Yeah, exactly. It's improbable, and you might get their attention for a glimpse of a second, but you just don't have their trust.
And then you miss the chance too, right? Because
again,
there's you're not going to be able to rectify that or change that with more emails. They're going to be like, no, never email me again. Like you lost that opportunity.
Exactly. And and never forget in cold email, not always are you going to get a response, right? I mean, this is kind of a sales rule. It takes like 9 to 11 touches to get a sale.
Yeah.
Marketing has their own, marketing has, you need 6 or 7 touches before somebody purchases through your website or whatever, or your brand. But, cold email takes the same thing. Is you need somewhere between, 3 to 10 follow-ups. So if you lose them on the first or second one, then you're done. And I always try to provide value. So I mix my marketing, whether I'm doing sales or marketing, whatever, or recruiting. Yeah. I'll mix in content from our blog and like try to be as genuine as possible. So like one of my follow-up emails, my rule for follow-up emails are always provide value in some way, shape, or form. So what ways I try to do that is like one of my emails, even though they're canned, or pre-written, are going to be like, hey, I was reading this article that I think would really, I think you should check out point number 3, right? And I try to find articles like, so if again you're pitching CMOs, is there a piece of content that you think would benefit CMOs if they read, even if it's not something you wrote, and then you could just point them at a specific section that like would maybe be helpful. Now, again, like if you solve my problem, I'm more likely to open up to work with you, but I'm more likely to even just respond and start that conversation.
That's a super, super good point. I think a lot of people confuse with cold email, like batch and blast kind of thing, even though they can personalize, quote unquote, and they can also, put in different values of like company names, company industry, things like that too, is that if you truly genuinely care about giving them value, I think the approach and how you would look at your cadences now or your sequences of emails, you definitely want to change them. I can already tell that I'm going back to our office right now and going to look at these too, because I think a lot of them are kind of like brute force and we're trying to deal with volume. But of course, that's not our goal. Our goal is not to get a lot of open rates. And like you said, we want to get reply rates. Is there any difference? Yeah. It sounds like a lot of the things you're saying are kind of universal for cold email. Is there any difference between, promo content related emails with lead generation emails? Like I think one's obviously a bigger ask, being trying to generate a lead, but is it the same principles sound like they actually apply, but is there anything different that we should be aware of?
Yeah, so the difference on a lead gen or sales related email would be you have a different call to action, right? It's pretty clear from like a marketing email or content promotion, link building, what you want, right? You don't have to spell it out always. And sometimes like not spelling it out and getting that response is actually a better thing. So like what I'm saying is no clear call, like the call to action is clear, or if left with no clear call to action is pretty transparent and might be working in your favor. Just to start that conversation.
Interesting.
When you're doing lead gen, you need a very clear call to action.
Okay.
You can't just like, and I think people mess that up, right? So it's like the landing. Cold emails remind me just like landing page optimization. It's like you've got your headline, you got your sub headline, you got your call to action button, right? And then you've got graphics to hopefully, and content and all the rest of it to hopefully kind of convince somebody to kind of go and check you out or try you out.
Right.
And I think most people muffle their call to action by adding too much information towards the end. And the end should just be wrapping it up, right? It should just be, it should end with a question mark. And I think, or like people add too many call to actions, or they don't make it really hard, or they make it too easy. Like for example, if you send a call to action and it's like, hey, use this link to book a time on my calendar. If you're emailing CMOs, it's like, who is this person? Why are they busier than me? Now, like some people will be like convenience thing. So to be genuine, you should say something like, hey, you're around next Wednesday at 10 a.m. or 12. If not, all right, here's a link to my calendar in case it's easier for you.
So,
and you're like making it like easier.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I've had people be offended where like, you email them multiple times like, hey, just click this link so that you can grab a time, but they're like refusing to do that. So being aware, and like you said too, it seems like that you push them towards being like your assistant or receptionist to find a time, even though at the end of the day, it can't be simpler for both parties. But that's super, super interesting. Is there anything else I'm missing in regards to cold emails and best practices and nuggets?
Yeah, I think one thing we should talk through is personalization.
Okay.
And personalization is not like name or company. I think that's like information everybody can get, right? Like everybody has access to that. You can get the name from the email address, and you can get the company from the domain, right? So like from the email address, you got both, right? Technically. Sometimes you can't, right? It's like S. Patel. You wouldn't know what my first name is. But personalization, I think there's people overcomplicate what it needs to be.
Okay.
Like when you're emailing CMOs, for example, think about personalization would be the types of CMOs. Like, are you emailing people in the automobile industry or SaaS businesses or e-commerce? The value prop's different. Maybe the size of the team is different. Their budget's different. Their goals are different.
Yeah.
So like you might not need to personalize it for like me versus some other CMO or whatever, but you do need a personalization maybe by industry. And so it's really personalization at scale just by category.
Yeah.
And so again, like if you're emailing people in the automobile industry or accountants, very different scale, right? Accountant, 5-10 person company.
Mm-hmm.
Automobile industry, 5,000 employees at minimum. 50,000. I can't even like that's just in
sounds
one
about
factory, right?
Yeah,
so it's just like, right. I don't know. It's like it's like there's a comma or two in there of how many employees there are. Maybe one comma, but yeah. So like you just have to kind of personalize it for that.
Yeah.
And then also like again, if you're emailing SaaS founders, like early stage SaaS companies, let's say, like you don't even have to. You can skip the pleasantries. Say here's my calendar link because everybody would just do it. You don't have to try to tell them like, hey, I'm trying to save you time.
Right.
Well, like if you email people in the automobile industry, you probably should not even try to get a call. Like, don't use your calendar link or calendar link. You need to use good old fashioned, like, hey, loop me in with your assistant, and we'll get something on the book, right?
Interesting. Just like so many different angles of being able to execute through this that I would even have no idea of. So that's super, super cool. Cool. Well, I mean, you've answered all my questions. One thing I know too is that we might have some questions from the audience, and we can send them. We can even do a follow-up conversation too, and maybe you can even be a guest on other parts of the other episodes that we're doing too, since you have 8 companies right now. So I don't even want to get into that. But Sujin, thank you so much for your time. Super, super appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. Great.
All right. Take care.
Hey.
Hey, Max. It's Jonathan over at Boost Sauce. How are you?
Doing great.
Awesome, man. I'm really appreciative you spending the time with us. For a little quick intro to our listeners, Max and I knew each other back a while when he was with Sales Hacker. Now you're vice president of marketing at Outreach, which is a really cool brand. I'm super excited to have you on here. So I want to talk about cold emails and like what your angle and what your thoughts are. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, sure.
Cool. I know you guys do a lot more than just that these days, but I want to start there. So if a person is listening, whether they are enterprise, whether they are a smaller company, are there some certain starting points that you, like, let's say I was your friend asking you at the park bench and you're like telling me, look, Jonathan, here's how you got to do it and go about it. Like, what are the recipes you would start with?
Oh man, where to start? Okay, so starting from scratch, the 101 lesson of cold email. So the 101 lesson for me would be to A/B test everything. So whatever you start with, make that your baseline.
Got it.
There you go. So you make that your baseline, and you need to have a good subset of people that you're sending that email to, so that you know whether or not it works.
Mm-hmm.
If you send it to 10 people, I'm not sure that's a big enough data point for you to really understand if something worked or not.
Sure.
But if you have a list of 150 people you can send it to, I think like that's a pretty good place to start.
Okay.
100, 150, 200 people. So you send the first email out, and the subject line allows you to understand your open rate.
Mm-hmm.
So is the subject line working? And your copy will allow you to understand if your call to action, your CTA, is working.
Yep.
And so you should have like link tracking available on that. So if you're doing this without a sales engagement platform, you're just doing this from your email inbox, super basic and free. You can do this math in a spreadsheet and understand your open rates and your click-through rates. Then you send another email with a different subject line.
Mm-hmm.
And that helps you understand those open rates. And then you can A/B test two of those. Eventually run multivariable tests where you're running different subject lines.
Right.
You also want to understand your ideal customer profile. So when you're cold emailing somebody, how can you set up these cold emails in a way where you are not having to personalize the entire thing every time,
mm-hmm.
But are still finding ways to make it look personalized for your ICP. So they used to call this a 10-80-10, but the first 10% of your email was personalized, the middle 80% was kind of like a template, and the last 10% was personalized.
Interesting.
And that was a kind of middleweight version of sending a personalized cold email instead of doing the whole thing from scratch.
Right. Okay.
I think if you do that, it's very important to have three common denominators in your ICP. So VPs of sales, title,
mm-hmm.
from Boston, location, in healthcare industry. And this way you can somewhat personalize those two 10%. You can personalize those two 10% and then somewhat personalize that middle chunk using those three common denominators.
Interesting.
So other people in this industry have seen this result. Is a good example of, a more personalized version than the completely generic email.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, you're A/B testing. You're also making sure you're working through your common denominators and finding ways to personalize emails at scale. I think that's the key right there, like humanization at scale.
Yeah.
So those are the first two things. But really what you want to do is be really closely aligned. I mean, and I'm not sure if this audience is, two guys and a dog.
They'll be across the board.
A dog or, early stage startups, pre-venture funding or bootstrapped, or if they're, bigger companies. But you want to find a way to
nail that ICP and nail your value prop before you start sending emails.
Okay.
Or at least understand your, like, before you, like, not just knowing who you're contacting.
Yeah.
But what makes them tick.
What does
Because
ICP stand
the meat
for?
of your email. Ideal customer profile.
Got it. Okay.
So that's like who you're selling to.
Okay.
So what's a good example of this? So the example that I used to use when I did presentations on this, when I was doing the speaking circuit at Sales Hacker, was there was a girl in San Francisco who was selling Girl Scout cookies. And she went out and she realized, okay, she needs to find a place where people are going to be hungry for junk food. And the type of junk food that she's selling, which is Girl Scout cookies. So had she went and sat in front of a vegan restaurant, well, those people don't eat Girl Scout cookies, and they're also going to be full.
Mm-hmm.
Not a good place for her to sit. Not her ideal customer profile. Instead, she went and sat in front of and placed her table with her Girl Scout cookies in front of weed dispensaries in San Francisco.
I felt like that's
and
where
so
this is
she found
going.
people who had the munchies and, you know, or knew they were going to have the munchies and were going to eat junk food, and she broke the record for Girl Scout cookie boxes, you know, sold. She knew her ideal customer profile.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an example of your ideal customer profile. So who are you selling to?
Got
you know,
it.
at Outreach, we sell sales engagement software. So we sell to sales ops, sales leadership at companies that do inside sales.
Mm-hmm.
So it's key to nail that first. Then you have to nail your positioning so that you're making the most out of the emails that you're getting out there. If you don't get responses, but people open the email, then it's actually an okay thing. It's basically inbox marketing.
Mm-hmm.
So you're at least getting that message through them. You're at least making them think. They saw your company name, so it's another touch point.
Yeah.
You know, it's like the law of seven. Or, I think it's called the law of effective frequency in marketing. But takes somebody 7 times to see your brand or hear your jingle before they recognize it.
Yeah.
So, you know, the McDonald's arches, you saw those McDonald's arches 7 times, and then I showed you a quarter of an arch, you would know what logo that is.
That makes sense.
Or if you heard some kind of jingle on TV, you heard it 7 times. You know, if I played 5 seconds of it the 8th time, you would know the rest of that song.
Okay.
So when you are sending these inbound or these outbound emails, it's kind of like inbox marketing. So like, you know, you liked their tweet, you connected with them on LinkedIn, then you landed in their inbox and they were cleaning up their inbox, and maybe they opened your email and then deleted it, didn't get back to you. But okay, it's a touch point.
Mm-hmm.
So you're optimizing for that touch point. So you want to make sure that message is on target. You're optimizing for, obviously, you know, them reading it, getting intrigued, so that subject line is important. But then, you know, the CTA is the next step. And the entire sales process is a funnel. So you don't need to necessarily close the deal with that email. You know, unless your deal size is $5, you know, then it
might be
easier.
easier.
You got bigger problems. You probably shouldn't be doing any outbound whatsoever.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is something you need to think about as like a long tail thing. Like, how do I get this person just to know who I am,
Mm-hmm.
then to read my stuff, then to respond to me. It's step by step. So you're setting that up.
Got it.
Over time.
So with and I'm not sure if Outreach does this too, but like, you know, those touch points that you mentioned, whether you tweet at them, connect with them on LinkedIn, then send an email, there might be 3 touch points out of the 7 that you mentioned, right? Some people are part of the camp where they say, oh, this outbound, you know, cold email effort is going to take us like 3 to 6 months to really see like the full fruition of it. Whereas other ones are like, no, I can at least get them to like raise their hand within like the first couple of emails and then get them in. And then maybe it's not even cold email it does anymore. Maybe it's just a regular sales process. Are there any different levels where you kind of seen like these are almost laws that like you can't refute them? Or are there ways to go about getting quicker, like, you know, shortcutting like every marketer wants to do?
I wouldn't say there's any laws. What I would say is that people need to reset their expectations and thinking about this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I advise a lot of different startups. So I'm about 50-something now, either through advisory or as an investor, and they're all, at least when I got in, you know, pre-seed, seed, I'd say the latest would be like Series A.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember advising this one company on their outbound strategy, and he was hitting the ground running. I mean, he was doing a lot of spray and pray stuff. And they had just closed their funding, and he's like, all right, now how do I ramp up basically the spray and pray stuff? I was like, you don't. He's like, what do you mean? I got to go faster now. I got to grow faster now. Like,
yeah.
You locked in the cash. Like, now's the time to really like take a beat and like perfect it. And I actually think that you should do that before you even need to like go, get traction. It's
right.
One step back, two steps forward. It's, the Abraham Lincoln expression where he's like, if you give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, it's like you spend the first 5 hours sharpening the axe.
Right. I like that.
So in this case, it's instead of just going out and blasting a bunch of shit out there to like try and I don't know, just spray and pray.
Right. Do
your work up front and get to a point in which you have a pretty good baseline to start testing things, so that your A/B test, when you start your A/B test, you're already at a point in which you're directionally correct.
Got it.
So that means, you understand your ICP, you understand, your customers' pain points and issues, and you understand complementary products, and you understand, the competitive landscape, and, what other people are currently using and everything else. And this way, when you start crafting your message and you start selecting the accounts you're going to go after, you're selecting the accounts that are low-hanging fruit. So you already know that they are like your most ideal buyers. And then you're selecting, the messaging that is going to resonate well with that list.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can start optimizing from there. But if you don't do any of that work up front, you just like go out there and start spraying and praying to everyone and anyone. It's not the way to do it.
Right.
You're going to be and you're going to set yourself back, and you're going to burn a bunch of relationships and first touches. And I think you're just going to put yourself in a position to fail. So,
right.
Most people don't want to hear that. Most people just want to go.
I'm one of them.
My buddy had the luxury of starting a very successful company before that one, but had nothing to do with the sales side. So, I think he got that funding on his resume,
mm-hmm.
And not necessarily the traction that they got. And he was able to take that time then and reset. And he followed, the directions that I gave him, the guidance that I gave him.
Yeah.
It worked out for him now on the second company. But most people don't have that luxury, and I get it. But I promise you, the week or two of hard work it's going to take to set yourself up in a better position is worth it than, just going out there and trying to move mountains when you haven't done any of your research up front.
Makes sense. And I like that quote from Abraham Lincoln too. That I mean, I am so the Yosemite Sam coming into a room and just guns blazing and seeing, my thing is spray and pray, is throwing spaghetti on the wall and see what sticks over here sometimes. So I have a question on one important factor, because you're mentioning, which was awesome, like obviously A/B split testing your subject lines, your copy, or like if you're tracking any links within the copy itself too. When it comes to the call to action, and this is like what we're seeing on our end right now, is if we go straight for the jugular and we do like those, 3 common denominators, make the middle part kind of like, not specific to them, but we can even talk about like how we've gotten results for, a comparable company in their industry, for example. And we ask them to talk to us. What we found is if we change that up, because they know what we're coming for, and we basically say, hey, I saw some potential, pitfalls or holes in your marketing execution, and I made a quick video about it. Are you the right person to send it to? We get a lot more people saying yes to that versus like going straight for the jugular of like our call to action. What, like, even though they both have the same end goal, what are your thoughts on kind of like, warming them up with a smaller ask first versus like going straight for it as a CTA?
Oh yeah. I mean, this is exactly something I would A/B test. So that's just 3 common denominators, and 10-80-10 is just one way to do it.
Yeah.
There's the value add one, which is, here's this, hey, here's this thing I thought you might like based on, what you just tweeted or something like that. Based on your recent, Twitter post, I thought you might like this article from, Harvard Business Review or something like that. And, that's a much more personalized version, but you should definitely A/B test those. There's the conversation starter, which is, just ask them a simple, quick question. That's another option. There's the embedded video that you can use. That's another option. There's inviting them to an event or on your podcast or, something else that you can use to get them in the funnel. It depends on your deal size. And it depends on the amount of reps that you have for the amount of target accounts that you have, and how fast you need to move. So if you need to move extremely fast and you don't have a lot of reps and you're just like trying to get off the ground, you're probably going to be in the more kind of spray and pray bucket. If you're a bigger company and you've got reps and territories and your deal size is, fairly large, you're going to have to personalize things to a much greater degree. So it really does depend on your situation.
Got it. That was an actually important nugget right there. I like that in regards to the deal size and also how much you have to personalize. Are there any, either from like your own days at Sales Hacker or even what you do now at Outreach, are there certain types of campaigns that you found like, hey, this doesn't really, just doing cold email by itself without like the conversation starter on the Twitter side or the other touch points, that it just doesn't make sense? Like, are there examples of that or campaigns that you launched recently or seen that worked extremely well?
So when I was at Udemy, we were trying to get instructors to sign up and create courses. It was a very heavyweight activity and a heavy lift. It required us usually sending them an email and getting them on the phone. And I would follow them on Twitter, like their stuff, like try and get some FaceTime there, use a little bit of LinkedIn. But for the most part, it was a lot more of like the spray and pray bucket. We needed traction. There were it wasn't something that people had to pay anything for. It was just kind of like a little bit of effort on their side. Selling software, selling SaaS. Okay, now you're doing 20K deals. You need to put in a lot more. You can, and that was just like one individual before. This is like mapping out accounts. So not only do you need to know who your ideal customer profile is as a company, but you need to know who your ideal customer profile is as the employee at that company, the job title, the function that is going to be involved in the decision to buy your product or your software, or your services, or whatever it is. And then you're going to need to know how to appeal to what's important to that person inside the organization. And everybody has kind of 3 layers. The first layer is, the individual employee. So what does that person care about? And, in the case of like Outreach, we're selling to someone in sales ops. Maybe they want to, streamline their sales process so their salespeople actually do the right things every time. Okay. So like that's what that employee cares about as an individual employee. Then what does the company care about? Oh, well, they care about like predictability and making sure they hit their revenue number. Okay, great. So we're not losing. But what about the individual as a person? That's the third thing. So like, what does that person care about? Oh, they want to be a hero. They want to get a raise or a promotion. Because they made this decision. And so like, how do you appeal to that? So you have to like, as the deal sizes get bigger, now you're mapping out, accounts. You're appealing to the multiple different levels of, the people that you're selling to and the companies that you're selling to. And there just becomes a lot more to do. So, at that point, you need to really build a relationship and you need to do, more omni-channel outreach. So setting it up in a way where you can go on Twitter, get to know people, comment, like, share, whatever it is, go on LinkedIn, do the same thing. Access them there, email, phone, personalized video, direct mail campaigns with support from marketing. What else? You have chat bots, so you're making sure you have that part surrounded. You have, your demand gen team that is, retargeting these accounts, you're surrounding the entire account and the individuals inside of that account.
Overwhelming. So that was actually
inviting them to events,
et
cetera, et cetera. Yeah.
So I was gonna ask real quick. So, like a nugget I thought was amazing right there was, let's say that you basically try to go straight to the decision maker. That was like how you used to do cold email. And I'm just speaking hypothetically from anybody listening, because you know that like going to like the VP of marketing is like the best, or director of marketing. But let's say that you have also, digital marketing manager as a job title that is obviously lower on the totem pole. What you basically were saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, was that you can come at that person with a lower totem pole seat that he has, and go for a thing of value like, hey, I can help you get a promotion. Whereas the VP of marketing, the copy could be more like, I can help you hit your numbers, or have that predictability, because that person's closely more aligned to with the business goals. Is that the correct assumption?
Well, I think everybody wants to do three things. Like, you have to appeal to three personas inside of every person, no matter what role they are at the company. So like they all have to care about what's best for the company. They all have to care what's best for themselves as a person and what's best for them as an employee.
Mm-hmm.
So like, here's what aligns to your goals at your job function is appealing to the employee.
Yeah.
And here's what aligns to you as a person in your career is what applies to the individual personally.
Got it.
So as a sales ops person, they're responsible for making sure the tech stack is, streamlined and smooth and built out, and they're selecting the best technology, and, they're not having to pull their hair out because like some triggers broke and now things aren't getting synced in the Salesforce.
Yeah.
That's as the employee. Everybody's on the same company goal. They need to hit their, quarter, and they need to hit 4 quarters up from now. But everybody has, a different at the employee level and then different at the personal level. What does that person want? Like if you're trying to sell something to an individual sales rep, what do they want? Well, they want to hit their numbers so they can take their family to Disneyland, or like put their kid through college, or go to Coachella for, the second weekend or something like that. Like whatever it is.
Yeah.
You're talking to like, a 26-year-old guy from, LA, he wants to go to Coachella. You're talking to a 46-year-old guy from, I don't know, Utah. He wants to fly his family out to, Disneyland.
I know what appeals to you now.
Reason.
Now I know how to hit you up.
Yeah. Well, I'm in between those two things, so neither of those are going to work.
Oh, dang.
But everybody's got their own, their own reasons to appeal to.
Yeah.
I think to your point, though, everybody wants to go straight to the decision maker, and sometimes it's too high. Sometimes you go straight to the, you think, okay, I'm going to go straight to the CMO.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, whoa, like the CMO doesn't care about this problem. Like, this isn't actually this is like very, very small on the CMO's list, but it's very, very big on the head of demand gen list. So maybe you go to the head of demand gen and you make that person your champion. Like, hey, this could really help you do your job better, and then it's going to hit your numbers, and then like you're going to look like a hero internally because you did this amazing job.
Yeah.
Like, oh, now they want to bring this to their CMO, and they'll help you sell the CMO and unlocking that budget. But if you go straight to the CMO and you're trying to say like, hey, this is a big problem for you, they'd be like, actually, no, it's not. I'm trying, I'm in executive leadership meetings right now, and we're trying to IPO, or we're trying to do something, whatever it is. Like, I'm sure they have bigger problems, and they're not getting their hands dirty or in the weeds on your solution that's going to help the demand gen team, find lookalike data.
Right.
Like, the CMO doesn't care about that. They leave that up to the head of demand gen to figure out, and the head of demand gen brings something to them when they've made an evaluation. So it's okay to go lower and build champions internally that help you sell up. You just have to make sure that you focus and spend time on enabling them the right way.
Right. That makes sense. So to summarize, like the mini nuggets that you've dropped already is, split testing, not just the subject line or the copy, but also the audiences, of course, also the call to actions of what you're trying to do, but think of it more so that it doesn't just live within the email world. If you want to be able to have a ripple effect and go, faster in a sense in regards to results, you need to think outside of that and all the other touch points too. Is there anything else that you want to leave our listeners with, or did we cover all bases?
I go into detail on this quite a bit in both books that I wrote. One called Hacking Sales, you can find on Amazon, and one called Sales Engagement that you can also find on Amazon. I'd say Hacking Sales is, kind of around this, but also around your tech stack, and is more kind of for startups. And then Sales Engagement is for everyone, and very, very deep into this as a topic, not just email, but omni-channel, engaging with your customers and prospects.
Yeah. That's awesome. We will make sure to put that in the actual show notes and the transcripts. Max, thank you so much for your time, man. Super, super appreciate it. I know you're a busy guy, so appreciate it.
Anytime.
All right.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, man. Bye.
Yeah.
Well, everyone, super excited to have you for this next guest. Another set of perspectives coming at you. We have George Vitko, who's a sales executive over at Reply.io. How are you doing, George?
I'm good.
Good. Cool. Well, thank you for spending some time with us. We're going to be talking about cold email. I've actually perused your blog quite a bit too, and saw a lot of posts in regards to a lot of meaty examples from reply rates, response rates, and things like that too. So let's back up a little bit, because a lot of people listening might not even do outbound or even cold email today. Before they even think about starting, what should they be mindful of from a foundational perspective?
So actually, that's a very good question. What I usually like to talk about with my customers when talking about cold email, because I do this on a daily basis, is I usually like to take one or two steps back and talk about the more general picture, what they're looking to accomplish, and what their main goal of running cold email campaigns. And by the way, Reply.io is a tool for cold email campaigns and cold outreach in general. So it's not only email since recently.
Okay.
So in that conversation, we usually like to talk about, like you said, the foundation. What's the purpose? Are you looking to sell? Are you looking to engage with maybe your existing customers or some of the people you reached out to in the past? And that kind of dictates what tools you're going to be using and approaches you're going to take.
Yeah.
So
Okay, awesome. So defining your goals, I mean, very similar to a lot of marketing things in general, right? Even if you're starting your paid ads venture, what are your goals? What are you trying to accomplish? It's cool to see open rates. It's cool to see reply rates, click-through rates. Same thing with a lot of metrics that might not matter as much on other platforms. So that's a solid start. Let's take a practical example. You talk to a lot of prospects that are using Reply.io today on a daily basis. What's a common example of a business use case that we can say is a great fit for Reply.io right now?
Oh, that's a very that's a very good question. The application of a system like Reply.io is very broad.
Yeah, I can imagine.
The thing with Reply is whenever you have a large quantity of people that you want to reach out to, and if your main goal is to remain personal and personalized emails that look and feel as if you really just sat down and wrote that email to those people, that's where it can be used. It could be used obviously for things like sales or cold sales, warm sales, sometimes marketing, sometimes recruiting. We have one of the bigger markets that we have is recruiters, customer success people. And the first thing I usually try to understand is how familiar people are with the distinction itself between marketing automation and sales automation or sales engagement, because that's going to dictate the tools that you're going to select and the emails that you're going to be sending. So if the goal is to maybe inform people and just send them some information about your product, but not necessarily wait for them to respond because you just want to kind of stay top of mind, there's going to be marketing automation. Whereas if the goal is to engage with people, to get them on a call, to start a conversation, to ultimately close them into a paying customer, that's sales automation. And that's what we're designed to do here at Reply.
Okay, good. Because I want to talk about how do we make money for the people listening. And it was really interesting. We've kind of ventured out into our own journey with outbound and cold email ourselves. And we got a prospect on the phone today in Israel, actually. So I was up at 7:30 in the morning talking to this person kind of mid-workout. And I was kind of, apologizing for the loud grunting in the background or music blasting, but he was really nice. And he was telling me like, hey, we get about 100 pitches a week. And I actually reply to every single one of them because I've gotten like free stuff or like longer trials when like that person who tried to get a hold of me went to another job or whatever. And he said like half of them are using like video in their outreach right now. So what I've learned so far, and I want to hear your thoughts too, because I actually saw your bot on your website had a little good teaser question that actually like prompted me to click on it and open up. And it was like, I forgot what it even said. When it comes to copywriting, and it comes to you were asking somebody and the goal is to get a sale, right? How many times have you guys seen that not coming straight for the jugular and coming with your ask actually works versus teasing them into something of like small steps first?
Right. So the main thing about sales and sales automation in general, and that's not just talking about the live chat. Mm-hmm. And by the way, you guys also have a very nice thing there on your website, because I was looking at your website just before this call.
Oh, cool. Thank you.
You were saying, hey, you're from Canada. We've been in Canada. We love Canada.
Yeah.
So that's a personalization aspect. And by the way, the very thing that you did when you talked to your prospect in Israel, that's actually, you may not realize it, but it works in your favor. The fact that you're kind of you're looking more human to the prospect, like you're mm-hmm. saying, hey, I'm in a gym, these are the sounds, like I'm a real human, which is why, and this is kind of my theory, but I always like to get on a video call with people.
Yeah,
and that's the reason why so many more people are using video tools. And by the way, there's a video tool in our platform as well where you can record a video. Yeah, we have integrated with a partner called Vidyard.
Yeah.
Are you guys familiar?
That's what we use.
So,
yeah.
Right. So you can include your Vidyard videos, regardless of whether you're a free customer. They have a free tool. They have a paid edition. So you can include your personalized video. You can hold up a sign that says, hey, first name, whatever it is.
Yeah, yeah.
But the point is, in any outreach, whether it's the live chat or cold email, the goal is to appear human. Mm-hmm. That's first and foremost. You don't want to go for the sell. That's the first thing you want to do is you want to build rapport. You want to kind of talk to the human. You want to be honest and kind of respectful of their time. Explain the context why you're actually reaching out to them.
Yeah.
But also be transparent about, here's who we are. We think that we might bring value to your business
mm-hmm.
in such and such a way. And then, gradually start building up that value. You don't want to go for the sell even in the second or the third email.
Right.
So you're still kind of building up on that value proposition. You're giving value without asking. So people kind of very easily understand where you're going for the sell, especially in the first email. And part of my job here at Reply is to kind of explain to people that maybe come with a more kind of marketing automation background mindset, where they want to talk about themselves right from the start. They want to talk about how great we are. Here's a bullet point list of the great things that we do. We're a great company. This is why you should notice us.
Yep.
Whereas in our kind of philosophy, we try to explain that it's not about you, the seller. It's not about you, the company, but it's about you, the prospect. Whoever you're talking to, it's how you are going to benefit from working with us. From using our product, from using our service, and this is how you can benefit. And if the time is right, if that's the right kind of point in time in their day, they will notice that. They will kind of acknowledge, yes, we do have that kind of pain point, and they might not even reply to you right away.
Right.
They might not reply to the whole campaign itself. You might be sending a campaign of 10, 15 steps.
Yep.
But then you will kind of be at the back of their minds whenever time comes, and that happens almost on a daily basis with us, with my personal outreach.
Yep.
Here at Reply, I constantly hear from people that say, hey, you reached out to us before, you provided some good information, some helpful
something of
articles
value
from the website. Yes, you provided value. So, and now we want to launch our cold outreach campaign. We want to start prospecting. We want to start sending emails to cold contact.
Yep.
How do we do that? Can you help us? And that's basically how it works. It's a long-term process.
Totally.
But it totally pays. Yeah.
And to your point too, a lot of times when we get anybody on the hook, it's timing, like being lucky that they, us being an agency and also having our software, but right now we're testing it just for our agency. It's like, well, they might be under contract with another agency, or, things just don't, like, no matter, even if our pitch was great and they actually find value from it and it's different and they're more excited about us, we still have to wait. But that just gives our salespeople a great reminder to follow up with them when that contract is over. So as many, future calendar reminders that we can set, we see that as a win. And to your point, like, it's a long-term game. One thing I wanted to ask you too, so, one thing that I've recently been a fan of is going more so all in on things that you decide to do, because if there's a chance that it can work, holding back or going, halfway in or things like that will kind of put you off and find that might not work. So what we decided to do is, with Vidyard, the teaser that we basically say is, hey, we made you a super short video about some things that we found that could help you guys out a ton. Are you the right person to send it to? And so we haven't made the video yet because we want to make sure that they actually give us a reply first, because it would take very, very long to make a lot of videos, even if they were just, 3 to 5 minutes long. And then in addition to that, we are basically saying that if they're open to having a conversation with us after they see the video, we will give them a $100 gift card. Now, we've gotten the feedback from other, I guess, my marketing friends saying, be careful of that, because people might just want to be there for the gift card and not really care what you have to say. So far, so good for our sake. And also knowing how many people or companies also try to go cold outreach or pitch, we want to be different. We want to stand out from the crowd. So we're thinking, what more can we do? So what are some really, really, like, I guess, aggressive example, not aggressive, but, resources were there to make outbound or cold email work? What have you found be like some great incentives to move people along?
Do you mean incentives for people, for prospects to start replying to that email?
Yeah, replying to that email, like, because like we're waiving, our $100 gift card as like a carrot too. That might be a little bit unfair and take away the focus of what we're actually talking about. But I'm just wondering if you've seen anything like that.
Well, it really depends. It is something that depends on a lot of variables that we have no control over. But for certain companies, it could be just the value proposition. Again, like you said,
enough.
If it's the right time, offering a value. Speaking of your videos that you're sending, one trick that I've seen with one of our customers, I thought was very funny. So he intentionally includes like a picture, the thumbnail that represents the video that doesn't even exist. Okay. So he would do that. And people notice the video, maybe, again, that's maybe a picture with the name of their company or something that's very specific to their company. But the video is not clickable. It's just a picture. And they would respond saying that, hey, you know what? Your video doesn't work. We're interested. So that's already a point of, like,
I'm stealing that. That's actually really amazing because we've had people who reply to us on like the third email and saying, yeah, you haven't sent the video yet. And like, obviously our question is like, are you the right person to send it to? They might not even pay attention to that portion, but I would imagine the reply rate going up quite a bit with having the static image that you mentioned.
Right. And obviously you want to be careful with messages like that.
Yeah.
What I usually kind of preach is try to imagine that you're writing an email. Try to imagine that you're reaching out to a person that you know. Let's say, somebody like a friend of a friend or something, and you're writing that whole sequence, even though you might have hundreds or thousands of people in your list.
Yeah.
Each and every one of them should feel like it's somebody spending their time first learning who they are, because you're incorporating a lot of personalization kind of points into the email in the form of variables.
Yeah.
But also the nature of the email will people feel that they very today, especially in the B2B world, people very easily identify an email that was automated. Even, you might be saying something like, and you have seen those emails, I'm pretty sure, like on a daily basis. Hey, I read your article right here, and they're linking your article as if you don't know where your website is, like where your article is and then they will say, I read it, and here's the proof that I read it because I'm including a link. So that's an automated email.
Right.
And everybody knows that, but those people still keep doing that.
Right.
So what I usually say is try to imagine that you're writing an email to a friend or a friend of a friend. The content will then kind of come together itself. Like you could be saying in the next follow-up, you could be saying, hey, you know what? I just forgot. I forgot to include this piece of information in my initial email. For instance, for us, for reply, one of such tricks would be, hey, you know what? I just forgot. We also have integration with the CRM. And for those leads that we know that use certain CRMs, we will include the name of their CRM.
Smart.
And, we can integrate with it. You want to learn more. So those kind of tricks where it leads kind of naturally that conversation flows, even though you might be the only person talking so far with the follow-ups, it kind of feels natural where people might, the whole point is to get them to feel that reciprocity kind of, you want to trigger the reciprocity principle where they want to return the favor.
Yeah.
And they want to get back to you because they might not be even the right person. But again, if you caught their attention, you proved to them that you are like human, you proved to them that you spent some time learning who they are, then they will want to get back to you and say, hey, thanks for the outreach. Appreciate it. I'm not the right person. Or maybe I'm the right person. Or he is the right person for my company.
Right.
Why don't you talk to them? So this happens all the time for us.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's super cool. As you were talking, I was thinking of another example that I received that I had to take my hat off because I thought it was pretty brilliant. It was the template of the email was written as if it was an internal forwarded email from one employee to another. And so the employee that received that internal email is the one who's sending it to the prospect. So the way they did it was they basically had like, is it called tokens in emails? Like where you can replace that with like the data portion at, like you can put in like the day of the week or things like that too, right? Is that what it's called?
Well, in our case, there are multiple terms, but we call them variables.
Variables. And that makes more sense, actually. I'd rather call it that. Let's call it variables. So basically what they did was that they had these emails generated that looked like a forwarded message. So when the person would be receiving, like the prospect at the end would be receiving that email, it looked like an internal forwarded email that said, hey, we found some things that were like looking not too great for company XYZ. Do you want to reach out to them? Do you want me to reach out to them? And then basically it was just like one email, but it wasn't actually a forwarded email, but it looked like one. And then he would then send that email to somebody else. So there was like internal social proof strengthening of two, sets of eyeballs seeing this problem that they then reached out to that prospect. And then instead of a video, the offer was actually like a PDF. And so what I then learned later was they actually had a virtual assistant update the PDFs like that are pretty templatized, but like a little bit of customization depending on the company replying, that they could see when the VA could see when that positive reply came through, and like within 24 hours, the VA would have that PDF done that they can then send to the prospect. And they actually closed some pretty big names doing this. So that was an interesting creative way of thinking about just being different too.
Hey, I'm going to be stealing that as well. That's a pretty cool.
Well, you give me ideas, I'll give you ideas. It's awesome.
But the thing with cold outreach, these approaches become very common over time.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's kind of like the fashion. Certain things become very common, and then people start realizing that this is one of those tricks, and this person is doing that. Right. Like in the case with Vidyard, like when it just started, it was a super effective approach, but then everybody started realizing that it's not an actual sign that has my name on it. Although people still will reply to it much more than just a regular plain text email.
Exactly. But it becomes the norm, like with everything too. You couldn't talk about fashion for myself nor Stone, that's in this room right now, our video guy, but we're just with flip flops and basketball shorts, so we're not part of that category. But like we talked about earlier too, it's like how do you? It's really hard because you can't see what your competitors are doing from a cold outreach because you're not the one receiving those emails, so you can't really compare. And like, how do you one up that? How do you become more effective? I think in the future, there's another company that we looked at. It's called THNKS. It's like thanks, but without the A. And it's a portal that basically allows you to send little gifts. It can either be a digital Starbucks gift card. It can actually be physical things too that you can just have set up through that portal. And like they charge you a little bit extra for the cost, and that's how they make their money. But I'm wondering, like, as these things become more and more normal, and as things become more saturated and more flooded, do you think like cold email and cold mail like has a combo, like a ripple effect that's smart? Or what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I definitely see I see that the push towards the physical side of things, like people send more incentives. We're not in that world, so I can't really comment. We're still trying to focus on what we can do for the customer. And answering your question, it is really hard to keep track of what everyone else is doing.
Yeah.
But instead of doing that, because you could very quickly, go insane. But we try to focus on what we can do for the customer, and we're trying to kind of grow our expertise in our field of knowledge.
Sure.
And here at Reply, what we do is we don't just sell software, but we sell software plus expertise. We're software plus service. We do bundle a lot of kind of educational elements
awesome.
to go with it. So it's not just enough, and this is my main point in each and every conversation with my customer. It's not just enough to have a system like this in your organization for it to be successful. You have to, employ a lot of those best practices.
Mm-hmm.
How do you stay out of trouble? How do you not get into spam over time? Because you might be doing certain things today that might lead you to getting into spam 2 months down the road.
Right.
So how do you do that? So we kind of work with each customer specifically tailored to their situation and their business. Whereas, so if you do follow, and that also includes copywriting, like what kind of emails work very well, and there are certain general, and we can talk about those today, like on a higher level.
Yeah.
Like for instance, obviously things like the length of the email, the content, the length. I think the best practice today is like having up to 4 sentences.
Yeah.
And the call to action, it should have very clear call to action at the bottom of the email that people don't have to scroll down to in order to see, because if they're opening it on a phone, people will never scroll down a cold email if they see that it's a cold email.
Mm-hmm.
So and there's a lot of like tips and tricks around the content. And again, our main point is to help people understand that an email that looks and feels personal, that's the email that will drive results, not the kind of long and salesy list of features that you offer.
100%. Well, this is super cool, George. I know we're catching up here on the end of time, so I want to thank you so much. And if we ever have a follow up with more, in-depth questions, we'll get to it. But I'm glad that we can share some ideas together.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me. It's been fun.
All right. Thanks, George. Talk soon. Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.